Okay. Thanks for the doing that. So, like I said, I'm David Lambert, and I'm the I'm the host for tonight. I work with the Tacoma group, Fellowship of Reconciliation. I don't know who my compadres are, except my wife here. She's here, and the rest of us. I hope. Oh, here's Susan just came on, so that's good. She's one of us in Tacoma. But you guys all know this, but I want to do this just to, because I think it's important to just say briefly about what FOR is and what in particular what WWFOR is. And the WWFOR, as I was looking on the website, has been around since the mid 60s, considerably shorter period of time than the national, which I think it was in 1915. And but it said the mission statement is to replace war, oppressive systems, including racism, uh, economic, environmental injustices, uh, and environmental collapse, with replace it with nonviolence, equality, peace, justice, and global regeneration and adaptation. And we have, I think, 9 different chapters in Washington, Western Washington. And anybody who basically adheres to nonviolence. We're a nonviolent pacifist group uh, is welcome to join. Um, excuse me. Uh, in terms of, I just want to do a real short land acknowledgement. Whoever you are, most certainly that you and the rest of us are on originally Native American land, and um, and because of that, I think it's real important to whoever you are, if there's issues going on in terms of justice and inequality and all that, certainly is in the Tacoma Pierce County area, to do what you can from time to time to um, align with them and in solidarity. Um, I think that they would appreciate that. Um, that's the least we can do. So I I, I just share that. Uh, now I want to, like I said, if you haven't muted yourself, go ahead and do that. I think Louise, uh, you need to mute yourself. And hi, Bibby. Yeah. So mute, mute. There you go. So um, I just want to take a real brief period of time to introduce our guest speaker. She just recently returned to the Tacoma FOR in a formal kind of a way. Twila uh, was been involved with the Tacoma FOR uh, for some time uh, in the, what, 6, 8, 10 years ago, something like that. And she actually helped at least at one time, or maybe a couple of times, with the spring assembly. And um, I worked with her. I did work with her dad, Reverend Milton Andrews, back in the, what was it, the 80s, in terms of Fellowship of Reconciliation. He was a minister at Hillside, uh, among other places, but that's how I got to know him. And and then Twyla, uh, I met her back then, and we didn't know a whole lot about each other until I started working. She started working with us, and vice versa. Like I said, and I got to know her better a number of years ago, and then she's returned. Wonderful, and so welcome, Twyla. Your last name is Slind, and I just want to say. I asked her to write a bio, a real short one, and she said, Legal Rights for the Salish Sea is an all-volunteer group that has been educating citizens and community leaders about the plight of the Southern Resident Orcas through training sessions and meetings, legislative roundtables, and the collaborative development of the SRO um, Bill of Rights, the LRSS, has been writing proclamations and resolutions recognizing the inherent rights of the SROs and getting them signed by cities, counties, and citizen groups, including the Environmental Climate Caucus of the Democratic Party of the state of Washington. LRSS is partnering with the Northwest, excuse me, with the Northwest Animal Rights Network to have a bill ready for the upcoming legislative session in 2025 that will officially recognize the inherent rights of the Southern Resident Orcas. No more said. Twila, welcome. We're very glad that you are with us tonight and chose to present. I know you're passionate about this topic, so welcome.
Thank you very much, David.
Sure.
Yes, I remember when I was 4 years old, being at CBEC. And since you said that the Western FOR wasn't going on in the 50s, then it must have been church family camp or something. But my parents and I went to many of the FOR conferences in CBEC, and I have good memories of that. And the last time I went, I noticed that the playground equipment, a lot of it is still the same that I remember when I was 4 years old. So time flies. I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk about the Southern Resident Orcas, and I will refer to them as the SROs. I want to tell you first about a story of 4 SROs. The first is back in last December, a new little calf was born, and people were so excited. It was like a Christmas present because the SORs haven't been doing very well. But by the end of January of this year, he had died. Oh. And I know that many of you remember Tacoma, whose little calf died shortly after birth, and she carried that calf around the Puget Sound for over 1,000 miles and for 17 days. She was grieving, that's true, but there was more. People from all over the world recognized that this was a message, and she was saying, help us, we're dying. You may not know about Hugo. He was taken back in, I think, 1968. For a while, they were capturing our Southern Resident Orcas and taking them to places like SeaWorld to entertain people. Now that's illegal. But for a while it was happening, and we lost a lot of our orca population during that time. And they are intelligent and sensitive beings. And Hugo took his own life by bashing his head against the enclosure at SeaWorld and causing an aneurysm. So he died in 1980. And last, I want to talk about Tokitai. I know that many of you have heard about her. She was referred to as Lolita at the SeaWorld in Florida. And she was taken in 1970 from her family, and she was 4 years old. And she was made to entertain humans for 50 years. And you probably heard a lot of the Lummi tribe, a lot of people and Native Americans were trying to get her back to join in. She'd been the longest Southern Resident Orca in captivity. And it looked like we were going to be able to do that. And then right before she was going to be returned to the Salish Sea, she died. So in 2006, the SROs were listed as endangered. And since that time, their numbers have dwindled to less than 74. So the point of listing an animal or species as endangered is that then they're going to be more protected. Mm-hmm. But a corporation can lobby for how much harm the SROs can withstand and then go ahead and do that. Large, noisy ships, freights, carrying freight, disrupt the sound system in the water, so to speak, disrupt the southern residents' ability to hunt. They hunt salmon, they do it by sonar. And the more of this traffic that happens, the less able they are to find food. By far, lack of salmon is one of the biggest problems. The salmon population has been dwindling as well, especially the Chinook salmon, who have the highest fat content. And that's the salmon that they need, that the SRRs most benefit from. When they are being fed well, whales and orcas store in their blubber all the toxins and different things that are in the environment. When they are hungry and they start their living from their fat, all of those toxins go into their bloodstream and wreak havoc. So there are many things that are making it very difficult for them to survive. So in 2016, Dr. Chris Kevorkian, who is on this Zoom, and a number of other folks in Gig Harbor, myself included, decided to do something. And we're all volunteers. But we've done what we can. We discovered this thing called the rights of nature. And we thought it might be a way that we could help the orcas population, the southern residents population, come back. So we started holding meetings here in Gig Harbor and Tacoma and other areas, educating the public about the rights of nature movement and also the plight of the Southern Resident Orcas. We worked with a number of nonprofit organizations and environmental activists, and including Native Americans. And together we created the Southern Resident Orca Bill of Rights. After that, we continued to reach out to leaders and lawmakers. We held legislative roundtables to educate our lawmakers and ask for their support. And in 2022 and 2023, we received support from 5 cities and 3 counties that signed proclamations recognizing the inherent rights of the SORs. And in 2024, the Environmental Climate Caucus of the state of Washington Democrats adopted 2 of our resolutions. One was to recognize the inherent rights of the SROs, and the other was to establish the right to establish rights for the Snake River. The Snake River provides much of the salmon that the southern residents need, and we have to do something to get that supply of salmon to come back to what it was before. All the dams were put up and things started to go downhill for that species. In 2023, we partnered with the Northwest Animal Rights Network. And we want you to know that they are the people that we are partnering with. And that is the website that you should go to get information about the Southern Resident Orcas and what we're doing. And Chris, can you put that in the chat and people can I think it's NARN.
I've got it in the
Okay.
chat. Thanks.
Oh, okay, great, great. Okay, so they are helping to write a bill that we hope will be introduced in the next legislative session, 2025. And our goal is for the Southern Resident Orcas to have legal standing and a voice at the table when decisions are being made that affect their natural, inherent, fundamental rights to exist, to flourish, and naturally evolve. The rights of nature movement is the fastest growing legal movement in the world. Ironically, if we do not respect and protect our environment and the animals that depend upon it, we, who are also animals, will not survive the climate extinction crisis that is unfolding. The ocean contains roughly 78% of all the oxygen in the world. And when I say the ocean, I mean all the oceans. So if the apex predators, animals in the ocean, start to go extinct, and we continue to have more and more plastic going into the ocean, we don't know what that's going to do. But what we know is right now it's killing seabirds and other animals. And doing something. You can't just dump something in the ocean and not have an effect. So if we continue to dump poisons into the oceans and the waterways around the ocean, like the Puget Sound, like the Salish Sea, human beings will become one of the dominoes that fall when life can no longer exist as we know it. All of this is really, really important. And the Fellowship of Reconciliation reaches out to create peace in our world, peace with other people. And I call on you also to reach out against the violence being done to our environment and to the Southern Resident Orcas in the form of human harm. So I've said some kind of downer things, but here's what we can do. First of all, I'm just wondering how many people here are from Olympia? Are there any Olympia people? Oh, great. Okay. Well, in Olympia, we have sent Mayor Payne a proclamation recognizing the inherent rights of the Southern Resident Orcas. Please contact him and tell him that you support this and that you want him to take action. Chris will put his contact information in the chat. The more cities and counties and organizations that do this, the more we can show our legislators and lawmakers, our mayors and council people, how much support there is in our communities to do this, to take this step. And remember, the Southern Resident Orcas are native. They are ours. They are only in the Salish Sea and the Puget Sound. So one thing Chris told me is that she did not want them to go extinct on her watch. And we've sort of all gotten on that bandwagon. Okay, Seattle. Any Seattle? I know that Elaine and Bert are from Seattle. Anybody else? Oh, great, Beth. Good. So Dow Constantine is your King County executive, and he states that he wants to confront climate change. He has been active on a number of environmental causes, including placing the largest order in the nation for battery-powered buses. And he's worked to preserve the longest remaining natural shoreline in the Puget Sound on Maury Island. So if you know him, or you have any connection to him, or you have friends who have connections to him, please reach out to him to support a proclamation for the county, recognizing the inherent rights of the Southern residents. And Dave Updegrove is the chair of the King County Council, and he's also an environmentalist who's running for Commissioner of Public Lands. If you know him, or you know anybody who knows him, please reach out and ask him to sign a proclamation, a King County proclamation, recognizing the inherent rights of the Southern Resident Orcas. And I don't know, Chris, if you have Dave Updegrove's contact information, but it isn't hard to find. You can Google it on the internet. And everyone, you are all probably part of legislative districts. You all have 2 representatives, state representatives, and you have 1 state senator in your district. In my legislative district, and this is the Democrats, in my Democratic legislative district, number 26, we voted on and passed to write a proclamation supporting the inherent rights of Southern Resident Orcas. And if other legislative districts can do that too, that would be great. That just would be more help for getting our bill passed when these folks go to Olympia in January to start working to pass their laws. We will send out action alerts, and as the bill moves along. So I will probably do that through the FOR newsletter, send action alerts, and if it's something that comes up suddenly, I'll try to, contact folks by phone. As the bill moves along, your presence on Zoom or in Olympia at a hearing for this bill would be very great. It would show that we have support, and bring your friends and anyone that you know that also is supporting this bill and what we're trying to do. And I know that I didn't stop for questions, but now I am going to stop so that if any of you any of you have any questions, either about what you can do or about the rights of nature or the Southern Resident Orcas, please ask.
Thank you, Twila. And if you do have any questions, one of the best ways to do this is, if you don't already know this, it's down at the bottom of your Zoom where it says reactions. If you click on that, it has right above it, it has raised hand. So you can do that. And of course, you can do it the old-fashioned way by raising your hand. I think we have, I know we have somebody, Twila, who's raising their hand electronically. Do you see that?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and either Bob
or yeah,
Jean or both. I don't know.
Yeah.
My question is, if you know people in Olympia who are activists and involved with environmental issues, if you could give me their names, and they're likely associated with FOR or I know them otherwise. I know Rod Tharp and Susan McCrae have worked with Backbone to create giant orca and other things. And then the other person I know is Lynn Fitzhugh, and the Thurston County Action Team works with environmental issues, and I could get in touch with them, and hopefully they could, they might be more effective with the mayor and the proclamation than Bob and me. We are not known for that aspect of peace and justice work, but of course do. So if you know anybody here, that would be helpful.
Well, I don't know activists in Olympia,
Okay.
but what would help me is if you could give me their information.
Okay.
And if you can put your email in the chat, I can get in touch with you that way.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We do know about Backbone, and they are supportive of what we're doing. They're doing mostly work for the dams, which obviously would help with getting food for the Southern residents. And so that's one of the reasons why we had put forward to the Environment and Climate Caucus the
you want to send them to Twila, right?
established rights for the river. We saw that as a means of helping the Southern residents and helping with our bill. Unfortunately, what happened is that the resolution for the Snake River was forwarded to the Washington State Party that meets later this month. But the resolution that the Environment and Climate Caucus adopted in June didn't get sent forward. It was just a minor mistake, but actually turned out to be a rather huge one that we're hoping is going to be resolved quickly. But that would get our work out to legislators, and then that would support us in meeting with legislators. And you could see that I put a list of legislators' email addresses in the chat. Those are people who I've reached out to meet with. Some of the people we have had the opportunity to meet with. Unfortunately, we haven't found a representative yet who will act as a primary sponsor for our bill. We're still working on the bill. And actually, it's kind of funny because as I'm not a lawyer, my field is death and dying. You might be familiar with the Kevorkian name, all about death. But we're throwing everything in the kitchen sink into this bill, knowing that the legalese folks will delete a whole bunch of stuff. And so we're seeing it as an educational bill because it will actually be quite historic. It will be the first rights of nature bill in the United States that's recognizing the inherent rights of a species. We've recognized rice, and we've recognized rivers and mountains in other countries, but the United States has been quick to kind of just deny any sort of rights of nature legislation. It just is fighting it tooth and nail. So if you have any connections to any of the legislators that I put in the chat, most of them are part of the Fur Fighters Committee. So we know that they are animal rights people, but not all animal rights folks are supportive of wildlife. They may be more supportive of, kittens and puppies and critters like that, but not necessarily whales or other species, larger species. But so far, the people we've spoken to have been very kind, but also very busy. And so they thank us for our work and then say, you know, let us know how we can help. And what's saddened me in this whole process is that when I've called, I don't often even get an answering machine. So that's why there are no phone numbers listed. I just listed emails. And even with the emails, I don't often get a response. So it's rather frustrating that our elected officials won't take the time to respond, especially when this is something so historic. So sorry, Twila, I didn't mean to take up all your time.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah,
Go ahead, Clara. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, when you are a volunteer, you can't just like change things overnight. That's why it takes so long. But if everybody does a little, we can move forward. We have moved forward. So I guess I'm saying don't be discouraged. Keep trying. And we are getting responses now from a couple of legislators who will meet with us on Zoom. So little by little, it's going to happen.
We have Jonathan and Rosie have their electronic hands up. Have you muted yourself, Jonathan?
Yes.
You have, okay.
So I have a question about your relationship with a group called the Rights of Nature Initiative, which appears to be focusing almost exclusively on rivers, but they are also trying to frame a legal doctrine of rights of nature for our state. Have you had contact with them? What's your relationship with them? How are you collaborating or not?
Is this the Snohomish group? Do you know?
I don't see anything about Snohomish. It appears to be statewide.
Yeah, we've reached out to quite a few. In fact, we were part of a coalition for rights of nature movement in Washington State. And it seemed as though people were more interested in working independently as opposed to uniting. And so we were making quite a bit of progress with our campaign. And we're hoping that other people would jump on board to help us move it forward so that we could help everybody else once we got this campaign kind of, you know, secured. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So it's been really weird, to be quite honest. I've been in the environmental movement for about 50 years or more, and it's frustrating that we're not all uniting, because I think that had we united a long time ago, we'd probably be a lot better off now. But if you happen to have their contact information, that would be great. We'll reach out. I have reached out to quite a few people. What we are finding, though, is that there are rights of nature groups in Canada who are very supportive of what we're doing. And there's one in particular, it's the Royal Canadian Environmental Network. And they're very interested in rights of nature and the Southern residents. So they've been helpful. Thank you for that. I will look that up. And helping as well to connect us with other people in Canada, so that we're sort of having this two-prong approach for saving the Southern residents. We've got the Washington side and the Canadian side. And if only the politicians would work together, that would be awesome. But as we know, the politicians here really don't care about what's going on in Canada. And Canada may beat us to it. And that would be wonderful, as long as somebody gets something done to save the Southern residents before they go extinct. So thank you for that.
We did have a lot of collaboration when we got the Bill of Rights done. There were many organizations and people, and we still kind of keep in touch. And it's, you know, we can collaborate with other folks and get their support. But our partner is the Northwest Animal Rights Network. And there's been some confusion because we used to partner with another group and they have a lot of information, but we were unable to continue working with them. So if you want to get kind of like really involved and or if you want to tell people where to go, tell them to go to the NARN.org, I believe it is. I think we have it here in the chat. And that is the organization that will have the information about what we're doing with Southern Resident Orcas.
We had partnered with Michelle Bender in 2018 when she was at the Earth Law Center, and ended our partnership last year when Michelle left and another person in our campaign left. It wasn't a very good or happy ending, unfortunately. And we're struggling a bit with some of what they're putting out, saying that they're doing, which is a little bit frustrating and sad, because it would be wonderful, as I said, if we could all just work together. But Northwest Animal Rights Network is just doing amazing work and is in the state. They're able to connect with the legislators. They've got a gazillion volunteers. In fact, one of their volunteers is a student at Humboldt State University who managed to ask the city council in Arcata, Northern California, to support a proclamation, and they did that last year. And so the first proclamation for the Southern residents was in Arcata, California, because we know that the Southern residents were often, when there was enough Chinook salmon here, they spent most of their time in the Salish Sea, but they are also West Coast. They migrate along the West Coast, and so they go down to California, they get down to Monterey. And we also had a proclamation supported in Depot Bay, Oregon. So it's not just in Washington. It would be so awesome if we could have proclamations in every city along the coast supporting the inherent rights of the Southern Resident Orcas and showing people that we really need to do our best to save the species. Because as Twila said, when Tahlequah lost her calf in 2018, we received emails from people around the world just begging us to do something. And what's fascinating is that not only are they iconic to the people here in the Pacific Northwest, this will be the first species that would go extinct if we don't take care of things, that would go extinct where every individual is known to us. There's an organization called Northwest Orca, what are they called? The Northwest Orca, oh my God, I'm blanking on them. I apologize. They dress up. Some of the members dress up as individual orcas, and they know everything about the individual they're speaking of and that they're dressed as. And when they give testimony, it's just, you see these people sobbing in their orca suits because of what we're doing to these poor Southern residents. And while there are Northern residents who are doing quite well, the Southern residents aren't. And it's just, we've got to do something. It's all our actions that are causing their decline. So it's up to us to definitely change that.
I believe, Elaine, could you mute yourself, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, that made me think of, I think it's been a Republican talking point, especially Eastern Washington representatives who are quick to point out all of the harm that's being caused in Western Washington to the whale population by pollution, for one. And Seattle is or King County, I don't know for sure which one is responsible for the sewage treatment plant that overflows in the winter when we get a big storm and releases you know, a lot of raw sewage. Um, and then we're also learning that we have dams in Western Washington that are blocking fish passage and that are slowly being addressed. So I wonder if, are these issues that you work on, or how does that relate to the work that you're doing?
Well, we did have a resolution for the rights of the river, since the Snake River. And that was submitted and voted on and taken up by the state of Washington Democrats. Let's see, the Environmental Climate Caucus. So we do support doing something about the rivers. There's a lot of misinformation about what's the river, what the dams do and don't do, and so forth. And there's a lot of concern about replacing the energy that might be lost if they were to breach the dams. But that is, the scientists are all saying that is the way we get the salmon back to health again, is taking down those 4 lower Snake River dams. And we've seen with other rivers, the Elwha River, the salmon are coming back. The salmon are going to do okay. So breaching a dam is a huge benefit to the fish. And then that becomes a benefit to the Southern Resident Orcas who eat them. That's all they eat is salmon. So I know that Eastern Washington has a lot of concern, people there who live there, or what's going to happen to my ability to get my crops down to the coast. And Solutionary Rail is working on this, on finding other ways to take things and get them to the marketplace quickly. So it's something that we have to, I guess, continue to reassure the people on the other side of the mountains that we know these things and we will work with them. I'm sure that nobody wants people to lose all their livelihoods, and I don't think that's necessary. So I think that needs to be addressed, and it will be addressed. But we don't have a whole lot of time. And that's what's frustrating to me is, okay, if you are concerned, then let's do something, let's work on this. Let's figure this out. The salmon don't have a lot of time, and the Southern Resident Orcas certainly don't either. So there's a sense of urgency in this, in doing something.
If you want to learn more about the dams too, there's a website, damsense.org. I've been in meetings with experts about the dams for a couple years now, and we're meeting weekly. And it was just devastating, not only to hear about the dams and all the misinformation going around, but the fact that the people who knew the most about the dams were dying off. And we lost one member who was an expert, Jim Waddell, earlier this year. And that was a huge, huge loss to all of us. Jim and Ken Balcom had run the Center for Whale Research. He was what we referred to as the pod father of the Southern Residents. He died a few years ago. And so losing Ken and Jim, and there's another gentleman we lost, Rod Sando, who was very involved in the salmon and the dams, and a few other people whose health is at risk. And these people are literally giving their last remaining moments to fighting for the dams. The Nez Perce have a resolution recognizing the inherent rights of the Snake River. The Yurok have a resolution for the Klamath River that's recently finally been breached. The dams have been breached there, and they're seeing a tremendous change already. what some people miss is the fact that without the salmon, our forests aren't as healthy. We always talk about everything is connected, but that's because everything truly is connected. Without healthy rivers, we don't have healthy forests. Without healthy forests, we don't have all the oxygen that we need. And without healthy salmon, we don't have the southern residents. So we need them as much as anything. And it's up to us to really do what we can. And Jonathan, I saw that you put in the chat about this whale sanctuary and others. What some people have suggested for us is, you know, what about marine protected areas? What about sanctuaries? What about the Endangered Species Act and so forth as protections for the southern residents? All of those things have failed to some extent. When you think about the Endangered Species Act, you know, it's in the language itself, endangered. You have to become so endangered for the act to even be adopted for that species. It's somewhat ridiculous. It would be like saying, well, we have, you know, fewer orange people, so let's decide to say that they're endangered. The Marine Protected Act would be great. Marine Mammal Act, all of those have been implemented, and yet the southern residents continue to decline. And what we're suggesting with the rights of nature is that we look at a species as kin. They are not our property. I put in the chat a really great documentary that's free. It's on YouTube. It's about an hour long. We used to share it in our community meetings when we were teaching people about the rights of nature. It is a beautiful, beautiful documentary that I would truly encourage all of you to see if you have an hour to spend. It really explains about the rights of nature. But when you think about it, it's sort of ridiculous that we think that we own nature, that we, you know, quote unquote, own the property we're on. How could anybody own a piece of the earth? We are not the only ones living on the earth. I don't own where I live. I am the caregiver. I am the caretaker where I am. And I share this beautiful, beautiful place with deer, with raccoons, with squirrels, with chipmunks, with a bear that I refer to as Baloo. And poor Twila has to hear me give a Baloo update whenever Baloo comes to visit, because I watched The Jungle Book far too many times as a kid.
And Baloo sits on the fence a lot.
Yeah, Baloo is just blows my mind, just looking in the backyard and seeing a beautiful bear in my backyard. And this is his place. This isn't mine. He was here first. So were the deer. So it's an interesting way of thinking, and it's changed my philosophy. I mean, I thought I was a pretty diehard environmentalist until I got into the rights of nature movement. And so, yeah, if you have an hour to spare, please take a look if you have any interest in connecting further with nature and seeing what's happening in other countries. Because New Zealand, Ecuador has rights of nature laws since like 2010 or 2012, pardon me. And rights were just given to waves in Brazil. Last year, Panama recognized the inherent rights of sea turtles. The southern residents bring in about $216 million annually into the economy here. And we can't afford to lose them. We need them. In fact, when they did a research on whether whale watching companies would stick around if southern residents went extinct, more than 35% just said no, it's not worth it, because people come to this area to see the southern residents. When you see a northern resident or any of the other cetaceans in the Salish Sea, like humpbacks or grays or minkies, that's just icing on the cake. But if you're able to see a southern resident from shore or from a whale watching boat, it's exhilarating. It is truly exhilarating. And if you want to see even larger whales, go down to Santa Barbara and you can see blue whales and fin whales and humpbacks. And oh my God, to be in a boat next to a blue whale that's close to 100 feet long is just, it really puts into perspective where you are in life. It's just the most exciting time. And just one more plug. If you do like whales, Orca Network has a fundraiser annually in late February, early March, where they go down to Baja, to San Ignacio Lagoon, and you can play with the gray whales down there. And you get to fly down, stay in little cabins, and go out with on little boats twice a day to play with the gray whales. And the gray whales come up to you, and you can pet them and love up on them. And I went in 2018 and kissed a gray whale every time I went out. And it's so fun. There was a mommy and a baby who came up, and I was in a boat filled with older women, and they kept saying, "Oh my God," it's like the mother is telling them, "Just watch my baby, give me 10 minutes of just some sleep, because my baby just keeps keeping me up." And the baby's just popping her head out of the water, like as if to say, "Mom, mom, 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 watch me, watch me." And she's hitting her head against the boat a little bit to find out, what's this boat? Who are these people? It is so much fun to get that connected with another species who is just huge and so much more intelligent than we are, and so much more compassionate. So just if you ever have the time, I would highly encourage you to do that. There's a question.
You're on mute, Bob.
Yeah.
Oh, there.
Jean's has a question.
Yeah.
Oh,
Are native tribes and supporting the effort to save the orcas? I know that the Macaw tribe hunts, has a long tradition of hunting and has gotten permission to do some limited hunting of gray whales. But I wonder if other tribes are supporting the rights of whales.
well, we have reached out to and supported the tribes, gone to Olympia with them to support their issues. And like I said earlier, we did have some individuals help write the Bill of Rights, but we have to understand that the Native American community has a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like they have never not believed that the Southern Resident Orcas had inherent rights. They consider them their relatives under the sea and have lots of stories about them and so forth. And it's like the colonial people coming to them and saying, well, we need to get legal rights. And it's like, okay, you do that. We do what we do. And so I'm not saying that we don't have support, but I'm also not saying that we are working with any particular tribe. We would like support, and we have reached out. And if anybody knows any Native American that you have a relationship with, or thinks that they would be open to participating in this effort that we have, please let me know. But we have had conversations, especially with Nez Perce, but again, they are very busy with what they are doing. And so they are not going to fight this, but not necessarily going to take the lead, which we would love for that to happen. But that is not at this point happening.
There's a group in Olympia called Learning Right Relations that we've been involved with. And I could certainly pass this information on to them and see what their feeling, what their approach is. And then I have my son-in-law is half Makah and half Skokomish, but that doesn't make it easy to talk about those things.
Right.
But then I have a granddaughter who is, having her own mind. So, and I think children in the Northwest, I was a teacher for a long time. I think children have been very focused on saving the whales and salmon and such. So I don't know if that's, if education is a way to approach the issue with some people.
Yeah, we have there's two young ladies who are local, and they call themselves Two Girls Take on the World. I don't know if you've heard of them, but it's Emma and Annie Stafke. They are sisters, and they have produced a documentary about Hugo. And their website is myactionscount.org. And they are very inspiring. I heard them speak at an LD meeting last week. And on their card, they have the Southern Residents on their business card. Let's see if I can get this on here. They have the Southern Residents, and we are in talk. We're going to talk with them, meet with them next week. So this documentary that they're putting out is going out on, I believe, on the film festival circuits. And I've seen the trailer and it's very good. So we do have young people getting involved, and that is very heartening.
But we could always use more. So
yes, we could.
you could connect us, please let us know. And when it does come to the Southern residents and tribal communities, we're talking with quite a few tribal members now. Our legislators always ask if we have tribal support. And what I was told by some tribal members is that's a way to either tell us they're not interested or that they want to make sure that they are doing everything they can for the tribes that support them, because they receive a lot of money from tribes. And I wasn't aware of that until we started doing this work. So that's kind of interesting. But the Nez Perce, as I put in the chat, the Nez Perce have definitely been supportive of us and what we're doing. But again, as Twila mentioned, it is very challenging for groups to jump on board. And the concern is from what I've been told, is if something gets screwed up along the way, somehow, for some reason, they don't want to be the ones who have agreed to anything. And that makes total sense, because I think all of us would agree to that. But what is really interesting is that the Democrats don't even all agree on issues. And yet we're being told to ask a tribal nation to all agree to recognize the inherent rights of the Southern residents, when we can't even get our own party to agree to, single pay healthcare and other things. So it's a bit of a cop-out, I think, from some, but we would definitely like to be led by tribal communities. We're happy to do all the work, because we know that everyone's beyond capacity these days. Our whole intention is we just want to save the Southern residents.
I have my hand up electronically. I'd like to raise a question or comment, and that is I really appreciate this rich conversation about inherent rights. And I've read about this to some extent, not necessarily with the Southern workers, but in other contexts, in other situations. Not much, but I haven't read if there's any, heard if there's any uh, guiding values, mission statement, or visions, uh, fundamental principles. I'm sure there must be, I would imagine. Twila or Chris, could you enlighten us maybe about that?
Yeah, there's a great group. Actually, there's a lot these days. There's Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. I'll put the link in the chat. They've got a lot of information about various rights of nature issues going on around the world. We're really excited about the fact that not only are we looking at rights of nature, but also ocean rights, which is quite new. Michelle Bender, who we have partnered with, I mentioned earlier, Michelle had created that avenue, and it's taken off like crazy because people are recognizing the blue economy, the impact that whales have to mitigate climate change, the importance of healthy oceans, healthy seas. But Michelle is at Ocean Vision Legal, and I'll put that in the chat as well. But Garn has some simple information. There's also some more tribal-led groups, and I'll put those in the chat for you.
Thank you. What other questions are there or comments?
You have to be able to read.
Hearing none.
No, Bert wants to say something.
I'm sorry, who does?
Bert.
Oh, sure.
I was
Okay,
waiting
Bert,
for that.
go ahead.
For Bert.
Thank you. I'm unmuted now. You can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Someone earlier on, maybe it was you, Twila, I'm not sure, talked about there being such a repository of oxygen in the oceans. That was news to me. I could be quite ignorant about this, but you can do electrolysis, I think. You can do a process to extract H2O from O2 from H2O. Could you say more about that? Or what, in what sense?
My information is that this is from plants in the ocean, in all of the ocean. They are just like our plants on land. You know, we get the oxygen from them and they get what they need from us. It's true in the ocean, and there's many, many more plants in the ocean, in the oceans. And they let off oxygen, and that's how the fish get it through their gills. Now, I'm not a scientist, so that probably didn't make much sense, but there is a way to extract. There is a way that the oxygen gets into the atmosphere from the oceans. And I was shocked that it was that much. I thought the forests were the ones that gave us the most oxygen on Earth, and that's not true. It's the oceans.
Thank you.
See, Mary has her electronic hand up.
Yeah. The call-in user one was in line before me.
Okay. I'm not sure who that is, but
That's a telephone call. Yeah, someone on the telephone wanted to speak. Go ahead.
hello?
Oh.
Okay,
Maybe-
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Michael Brunson on the telephone. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. And the question I have is, if animals have legally enforceable rights, if rivers have legally enforceable rights, how do we know just what it is that the animal or the river wants? Who speaks for the animal? Who speaks for the river? Because they can't voice their opinion or their wishes in words.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So in our legal system, if there is a child who's 2 years old and cannot stand up and speak for his or herself, there is a court-appointed representative for that child. And that is what we do with the rights in the rights of nature as well. So in New Zealand, there's a mountain that has rights of nature. And the native tribes in that area are the ones who take care of and stand up for and speak for that mountain. Does that answer your question?
Well, partially, but there might be some people who, there might be in the tribe, some people who think one thing and some people who think another thing. There might be some people who think that this would be good for the mountain, some other people who think that something else would be better for the mountain.
So the court appoints...
For a child, we usually let the parents speak for the child unless the parents are abusive and unfit parents. But who is the rightful child or the rightful parent of the mountain?
So if the parents of the child, for instance, are unable or unfit to speak for that child, then the court appoints someone who is trained in the case of a particular species, someone who's a scientist, perhaps a group, maybe 4 or 5 people, who are tasked with the best interests of that species. But they would have to be people that the court recognized as appropriate.
Well, thank you for that further answer, but now you've added an additional complication because you said the best interests, and rights and best interests are not necessarily the same thing.
Well, I guess maybe that if you're an attorney and you write a bill, you use the correct language, because with rights of nature, it is more, you have to recognize and respect and do what is for them their inherent right to thrive and to evolve naturally. So it's not necessarily you have the right to do this, you have the right to do that, as much as it is you already have these rights. They're being recognized and you're being allowed to be free to do what you need, naturally, what you are. Like with people, we have inherent rights because we are people. A baby's born and the baby is given those inherent, or has those inherent rights. They don't have to earn them. They don't, they just have them. And those are the kind of rights we're talking about here.
Thank thank you. I wanted to just actually add on to something that was in a prior comment about oxygen in the ocean. And that is that one of the greatest sources of oxygen in the ocean is the seagrass. And there was something either on NPR or on PBS within the last 2 days about the threat that is posed to seagrass by any number of operations, but especially ships. But the positive thing was, yeah, that seagrass also absorbs a terrific amount of carbon, so that in terms of removing carbon and providing oxygen, it is an enormously important source that needs to be protected. So anyway, that was just recently brought to my attention, and I was happy to see that. The one group that I'm aware of, and I don't know if they want to get involved, but the people who work on the issue of the cruise ships and the danger that the cruise ships pose to the environment. I'm not good at remembering their name, but they're very active, and their people really do a lot of, they demonstrate, they lobby, they're an active group. So I wish I could remember, maybe somebody else could put it in the chat, the name of them, but they've also donned orca suits in their demonstrations against the cruise ships.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Well, if someone has that information, please put that in the chat. Michael, were you done? I'm afraid I wasn't sure. I didn't want you to feel like you were cut off.
Hello, this is Michael, and thank you for coming back to me. And
yes.
Not wanting to squeeze anyone else out of their opportunity to speak, but no, I wasn't quite done, because this can be a really important issue. Human beings usually don't have, not really have inherent rights. Not any, maybe at the time of the Declaration of Independence, we thought that human beings should have inherent rights, but our legal system today, your rights as a human being are really up for grabs and can be modified or abrogated or canceled by the court if they think you don't deserve them, or some other interests are more, competing interests are more compelling or more important. And the question of who speaks for someone who can't speak for themselves is really a burning question when we're talking about human beings, and it will become a burning question if we establish rights for animals or for rivers. I'm not saying we shouldn't establish rights for animals or for rivers, but if we win that battle, the fight will not be over with. We will then have a huge fight over who speaks for the animal or the river or the other entity of nature that now has inherent legal rights. And scientists certainly are people whose opinions should count, but scientists have been known to disagree with each other. Some of us who have long memories remember that several decades ago, Linus Pauling, Nobel Prize-winning chemist and also Nobel Peace Prize winner, said that human beings should consume much greater quantities of vitamin C than most people do. And other scientists, those associated with the medical establishment, were strongly in disagreement with him and denounced him for saying that, although later research showed that Linus Pauling was right. So scientists do disagree with each other. And another historical example, at the time of the struggle against apartheid, the system of white supremacy in South Africa, many people, churches, organizations, and labor unions advocated boycotting, disinvesting from South Africa. And when workers demanded that the trustees of their pension fund should disinvest from companies that were doing business with South Africa or that had investments in South Africa, the trustees said, and the workers were demanding this in the name of human rights, the pension fund trustees said, no, we are fiduciaries. We have an obligation to act in your best interests, regardless of what you think of the human rights issues involved, and it's in your best interest financially to continue to be invested in these companies that do business in South Africa. And so we, the trustees of the pension fund, are not going to disinvest because we're putting best interests ahead of human rights, whereas the rank and file union members wanted to put human rights ahead of best interests. So human rights and best interests have at times been diametrically in opposition to each other. And if legal rights for animals and other entities of nature are established, we will see conflicts where the best interests and the rights are diametrically in opposition to each other. That is my prediction. And we should be thinking now about how we will want to stand when those conflicts arise.
Well, this is a good organization for that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there will always be questions, problems, conflicts. However, somehow corporations have legal rights, apparently legal rights of personhood. Somehow ships have legal rights of personhood. So somehow we will get legal rights, well, or will recognize the rights already inherent in living things. And even when that is not happening, we know it's not right. So we had slavery in this country, and now we know that it wasn't right to have human beings treated like they inherently weren't worthwhile, that they were only useful as property, that they were only good because of what they could give the people who owned them. And that is not the way FOR operates. And that is why we come to FOR with this issue and other groups that are working very hard. And you know, it is outside the box, rights of nature. And the US has a really, the European, I heard it said one time that in Europe, what they say about the United States is that they do the right thing after they've tried everything else. And that's not wrong. That is we are slow to come to that in this country, but we do. Like Martin Luther King said, you know, the arc is long. We wish it wasn't so long, but it is eventually in the right place. It is that, or we all die, right? We don't survive on our current course of using up nature like it was our own private property that we could do with whatever we want. We are on a trajectory that will not, it will end up our doom. Wow, did that sound like a preacher? Some of my dad
Oh.
rubbed off on me, and that's probably not appropriate. But anyway, that's my only response I can give because I am not an expert in law and I'm not a scientist. But I love the Southern Resident Orcas and I love nature. And I want us to have this for our kids and our grandkids.
Well, thank you so much for your desire to defend the Southern Resident Orcas. 4 decades ago, or longer, more like 45 years ago, I was very active. 50 years ago, I was very active in the Seattle Greenpeace group. And of course, at that time, one of the major focuses, or the main focus of Greenpeace was saving the whales. They were also against nuclear weapons and nuclear power and nuclear weapons testing, and also wanted to save other marine mammals. But saving the whales was the central issue of Greenpeace. Some of the Greenpeace members went out in small boats and tried to put themselves between the harpoon guns of the whaling ship and the whales that were being targeted. No Greenpeace member lost their life doing that, but it certainly was a real possibility. In some cases, the harpoon whizzed past only inches away from some of the Greenpeace courageous volunteers. So I thank you for being motivated by the desire to save the Southern Resident Orca.
Yeah, and thank you for your words, especially about Greenpeace, that someone would give their life. That's amazing and very courageous.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other questions, comments? Well, we don't have to go the full 90 minutes. Elaine, definitely. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to acknowledge that Mary Margaret Pruitt is with us.
Yes.
It's been a very long time, Mary Margaret. It's good to see you.
Hi, Mary Margaret. Thank you for that, Elaine. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, good. Well, this has been really thoughtful, inspirational, very informative. And I appreciate all the comments you guys have made, and Twila, you and Chris, sharing what you did with a lot of passion and commitment. I don't have anything else. Yes. Oh, Jean. You're muted, Jean.
Yeah, there. I wanted to know if I could make an announcement before the meeting's over. But
Absolutely, go for it.
I want to be sure that the topic is over.
Go for it.
I wanted to announce that Len Anderson's memorial service is going to be on October 18th, which is his birthday and a Friday. So there's going to be the Friday vigil at the usual place, and then we're going to go to United Churches to have a potluck and a simple memorial service where people can tell stories and make comments. We are planning to do it over Zoom. So would certainly, Gene Buskin will have the details when we have them. We're just starting to seriously get our planning done to go look at the space, and we have people offering to do things in a way that is hard to imagine. So it's really a community effort, and I do hope that people who knew Glenn would consider coming. The Zoom part would just be from 7:15 to 9:30, I think, would just be the memorial part, not the potluck, but wanted to let you know, and I will be in touch with Gene Buskin to be sure that more information is out soon.
Yeah, the in-person information is already on the www.for.org calendar on the website there. And as soon as I get more information about the Zoom part, I'll include that. So just look at our calendar.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for giving Chris and I your time tonight and asking good questions and engaging so well.
Yes. Mary,
Thank you.
Did you have something you wanted to share, Mary?
Just briefly, to pencil in Saturday, November 23rd, as our Western Washington Fellowship of Reconciliation fall retreat, fall gathering. I'm sorry, fall gathering, and we'll have more details in Jean's calendar and next month. And thank you, Twila. This was really wonderful, Chris and Twila. Yeah, thank you so much. This was a really meaningful program.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, thank you, Twila. It's wonderful.
You're welcome, everyone. Welcome.
All right, well, with that, take care, all of you.
Thanks, David.
Well, you're very welcome.
Yes, thank you, David.
Sure. Thank all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.